I wanted to share my thoughts about this post that I saw online, and I see the significance and how we can relate to the answer, and understanding that we are the generation that is gonna experience the fulfillment of what he shared according to the gospel. So the question is, did Jesus lie to these people? And according to the context of the story, the people, they were asking, Lord, your coming is going to happen in our generation? And according to the story, Jesus, told them, verily I said unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So then can we in our present, one, understand the fulfillment on how everything, the end of the age, the destruction of the temple, the greatest transformation, the coming of the Son of Man within that generation happened. And also how that reality happens today. It's a mystery that it requires a new level of understanding to see, to perceive, to comprehend. So let me share some thoughts. And remember, Matthew, the Olive Discourse, Matthew chapter 24, Mark chapter 13, and Luke chapter 21. You can read the whole context. And for many, interpret those chapters as apocalyptical events that are going to happen in the future. But let us see them in a new mind. So let me share some thoughts. All these things can be interpreted not as an external apocalyptic, chaotic events that somehow soon will happen. But what if Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21, and Mark chapter 13 is used in metaphorical language, is used in symbolic language to describe an inner transformation, something that happens within the self, something that daily happens within humanity when they change their way of thinking, their way of living. So therefore, based on that short description that I just gave you, we could see the fulfillment of all these spiritual things within history, our past, that generation over 2,000 years ago, how an inward transformation happened within disciples, within people. So again, all these things can be interpreted not as an eternal apocalyptic events, but as a process of inner transformation within the individual. Is a spiritual shift. This generation referring to those who are on the path of inner spiritual development and who will experience these profound shift within their lifestyle. Imagine us being present, like within them, as that generation, listening to the Sermon of the Mount and going through that spiritual shift. The shift within us from an egoistic mindset condition to the framework or the mindset of the collective mindset of the social political system that has conditioned us to that spiritual inner shift of changing, becoming pure of heart, becoming meek, and applying all the spiritual teaching that the generation received from that Sermon of the Mount as an example. Imagine that inward shift that transformed the old patterns, the old habitual thinking, that egoistic, selfish, impure mind, conditioned by tradition, by system of men, conditioned by inward desires. Now all that in apocalyptical language, symbolic language, metaphorical language, as we read Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, to describe with all that apocalyptical language that inward transformation. This temple is being rebuilt by the essence of a spiritual man. And that's why the story, the gospel, the good news of our inward transformation. So once again, this generation, referring to those who are on the path of inner spiritual development and who will experience these profound shift within their lifestyle, within their lifetime. The destruction of the temple symbolizes the dismantling of the ego, false belief, and attachment, making way for the coming of the Son of Man. A new spirit force within us, a new divine consciousness, awareness, will that inspire a new direction. That inward divine voice, the voice of Christ within, the voice of God within, that directs us in every aspect of life. So that is the coming of the Son of Man within each individual consciousness. So imagine how this generation over 2,000 years ago, something happened within them. The coming of the Son of Man, the coming of Christ, a new mind that remove and renew their old ones, their old patterns, their old traditions, their old system of belief, the old egoistic patterns, renew. And that was the generation. And that generation is every day being manifested by the reality of Christ within, the Spirit of God that renews, transforms, revive. So the awakening of the Christ consciousness or higher self, ultimately, the esoteric meaning of these verses often hinges on understanding the language not as a purely literal prophecy, but as rich, multi-layered symbolism that speaks of an internal spiritual process. It invites the seeker to look beyond the surface narrative for deeper truth about human evolution, divine timing, and the unfolding of our Christ consciousness. There is the eternal answer to this question. Did Jesus lie to these people? The answer is no. Because in everyone's present moment, the reality of Christ is that awakening within. The reality in our present of the second coming of Christ is that reality, that awakening within us.